Chicken, probably the most volatile of the meats. One of the things that everybody's so afraid of because it can get you sick. But as long as you know what you're doing, then you'll be just fine. Chicken carries a little something called salmonella along with it. So you always want to make sure that you are very, very careful with it because salmonella can make you very, very sick. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about chicken. Chicken is a bird, poultry, but it's a little bit different than some of the other some of the other birds. Game birds, such as the squab and pigeons and pheasants and things like that, ducks, actually fly. Chickens don't. Because of that, those birds we can actually eat medium, medium rare, things like that. Chicken always has to be cooked all the way through. Same thing with turkey. Both of those don't fly, and so because of that, they need to be cooked all the way or to well done. So with our chicken, what we're going to do is we're going to break it down so we can see some different ways of doing things. Now with our chicken, we basically have taken out the insides that we had, the gizzard, the neck, things like that. Now we're left with just the appendages and the actual body. So what we'll do is first off, I'm going to cut into the skin here so that we can kind of see in to the difference between the light and the dark meat. Now, the dark meat will be on the lower half of the chicken, the legs, the thighs, things like that. The breast meat will be our lighter meat. So we'll cut into here initially so you can kind of see the leg and the breast. Now, right now, they'll look about the same. But once they're cooked, the dark meat will be noticeably darker. That's why it's known as dark meat. A good way to work with chicken is a technique called brining. Brining is where you'll actually put about a cup of salt to about a gallon of water, and you'll let the chicken sit in there for a period of time, usually about an hour or so. After that hour, you'll take it out, wash the salt off, and you'll notice that the skin is actually a nice white versus right now it's kind of a little bit yellow. But it'll also add a whole degree of moisture and seasoning to the chicken that you don't get unless you brine it. So brining is one thing that you can do with chicken that works really well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to break this down. So basically when you're breaking it down, we're going to cut it open there, and I'm going to kind of pull the leg back to where the joint kind of starts to come out a little bit. And then once that happens, I'm just going to cut right along there. Now you can see that as I cut right along there, it just kind of opens up, and I keep holding it back so it's easier to see. And I just cut straight through there. Okay, whenever you're cutting along a joint, it'll always be very easy to cut. Whenever you're cutting into bone, it'll be very hard to cut. So that's one way you can tell there. Okay, so we'll take that leg off. We'll come in this side and do the same thing, kind of open it up and lay the chicken out so we can see where we need to cut. Kind of just pull it back a little bit to where that joint kind of pops out, and then just cut right along there. Okay, once again, very easily to cut because I'm cutting along the joint. Okay, so now we have our legs and our thighs, or our dark meat, off there. Now, I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut the breast off. So I'm going to cut just to the side of the sternum. You'll notice you can feel right along here, and you'll be able to feel that it's soft on both sides, but that it's hard right there in the middle. So you just cut right along the sides there to get the chicken breast off. Okay, and then once again, we'll just kind of fold it back so we can see where we're cutting, and just keep holding it back and cutting along right there. Okay, at this point, we can just cut the skin off, and we have a boneless chicken breast. We'll just take the skin right off, kind of cut it there where it's joined on, and just kind of pull it, and the skin comes off. So now we have a boneless, skinless chicken breast. Now in here, the inside is actually the chicken tenderloin, on the inside of the breast there. Yeah, it just pulls right out. In French cooking, they call this chicken supremes. So we've got our boneless, skinless chicken breast and our chicken supreme there. We'll do the same thing on the other side, where we just kind of cut down and kind of pull it back, cut that breast off the bone, and then cut through the skin, make sure that all comes off, pull the skin off. Another boneless, skinless chicken breast. And then here's the chicken supreme that we'll just kind of pull out there. So our supremes, a lot of times the chicken supremes you'll see in the store as chicken tenders. Okay, now we have our wings that once again we'll try to find the joint there. We'll just cut straight through the joint. See right there, it's a little bit harder to cut, so I know that I cut into the bone. Here, if I come up a little higher, go right in through the joint, so it's easier to cut. Now with this, I'm going to cut the tip off here. Once again, look for the joint so it's easier to cut. Look for the joint so it's easier to cut. And there is our drumette that you'll see with chicken wings, and then the actual wing. Usually just discard the tips and keep the wings. Okay, we'll do that here with our other wing. Right down the joints, so know that it's easier to cut if I'm cutting along the joints. Get rid of the tip. 2 more chicken wings. Now the body cavity here we can use for use in our stocks and things like that we'll talk about in a little bit. But as for right now, all the meat's off of it, so it's not really of use to us now. Now with our legs and thighs, there's a trick to getting these apart. First thing, if you notice on the back side here, you have a fat line right there on the chicken. So with the fat line, this is basically showing you where the joint is. So if you pull that skin tight and you were to cut through here, then you can see that I'm going right into the joint, that little white part in there. So we pull it tight, we cut through there, and once again, when we cut through, it should cut easy because we're cutting through the joint there, and then it separates real easy. Now, say you can't really tell where that is. If you turn it over on the other side, there's actually this little fat line right here. If you cut right along that, that's also where the joint is. So that's an easy way to know how to separate the thigh and the leg. Now once you're to this point, you can use your chicken in pan frying, deep frying, any application that you really want to. Just remember that you always need to clean up after yourself when using chicken. Never use the same cutting board to cut anything else as you have, especially with chicken. Any raw meat in general, but especially chicken. Use these tips and you should be just fine.